Good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight, we're going to talk about hope. I think hope is a very important thing. I put this meme up here because hope is absolutely essential to wanting to even wake up in the morning. If you've got no hope, you're not going to fight for anything. If you've got no hope, you're not going to be able to see a better tomorrow. You're not going to be able to even envision the possibilities of something more. Hope is so essential. And hope is not scientific. There's no mathematical equation that equals hope. Hope is a belief. Hope is a belief. And some hopes are founded in nothing, and some hopes are founded in meaningful data, meaningful information, meaningful experiences, meaningful knowledge. And before I go too far, I want to give a shout out to a friend, another fellow burner, a Facebook friend, Sure Christ. Sure lost her son to opioid addiction. And when I put this announcement out that I was going to be doing a show on hope, she came to me and she says, there is no hope. I lost my baby on Friday to opioids. And, I've been in that world. I've been around that for a lot of my life, unfortunately. And it's really difficult to lose someone that you love or someone that you know. Just someone that you are around, you just know who they are. To find out that they pass away in such a way is really difficult. But there is another way of viewing this. And don't let that death be a waste. We have real things to fight for, a better tomorrow. We have real things to fight for today. The opioid addiction, for example, is something that we can either look at and just put a black cloud over our lives and hang it up, or we could understand there are answers to this. There are solutions. There are things we can do to mitigate not only the addictions, but the deaths and the destroyed lives. Yeah, addiction doesn't just hit the one individual. It affects the entire family. It affects all the people downwind like a domino effect. And when we give up hope, we stop believing there's an alternative. And tonight's going to be all about alternatives. Our movement has been stuck in either doom and gloom or false hope. False hope is what keeps coming up, and we keep experiencing it, and it keeps whittling away the numbers, putting the hopeless into the doomsday category, keeps siphoning them away because we keep putting our hopes in false narratives, in things that are absolutely destructive. When we put things into our minds are very, very precious places to be. They control so much of our existence. They control how we feel. They control a lot of the endorphins. They control the chemicals in our bodies. They control what we do in a given day and how we feel and how we interact with our family and how we interact at work and everything that we do. And so when we consume nothing but negativity, consume nothing but doomsday narratives, our minds get sick. And I can tell you, doomsday is usually not the only alternative. It's amazing to me that the people that peddle the doomsday narrative tend to be the very people that complain that there's not enough choices when you talk about the duopoly. Hey, it's either A or B. Where's all the other choices in between? I'm going to tell you there is a lot to be hopeful for. There's a lot to be hopeful for. And it's essential for us if we ever want to change the world. If we ever want to actually change the world that we're in, we're going to need to embrace something different. We're going to need to embrace the future. We're going to need to embrace a different vision. We cannot allow the doomsday peddlers to ruin our lives, no matter how well-intentioned. It's like the drowning victim. It's like the drowning victim that wants to pull you in the water with them. You know? It's like, when you think about that, it's like, I wonder if we understand that in order to make progress, we've got to have an idea where we're trying to get to, right? We got to have an idea of where we're trying to get to. And I admit right up front, some of this stuff sounds a little bit preachy. I'm not trying to be preachy. I'm not even trying to be totally spiritual, maybe a little bit. But I think to myself, I was so depressed here recently. I mean, seriously, I have a lot of good reasons to be depressed. I lost my job. I am struggling to keep my house afloat. I've got a kid with autism that really, really runs me ragged. A lot of energy sucked out of me. You know, got laundry piled up, stuff going crazy, filthy house. Life feels crazy. There's the one side of it, right? I have volunteers that I count on that won't even call me back, that quit, that vanished, that checked out. In my moment of need, you know, that, oh my God, this is the doom side. I think, God, man, Facebook algorithms are screwing us up. You know, we got a bunch of people out there that don't want to hear the message of modern monetary theory. They're calling it a cult. They're this, they're that, they're that, you know. And you can get really, really depressed and morose. You can stop seeing the hope. And when you stop seeing the hope, others stop seeing the hope in you. They stop seeing the hope. It's like putting ink in the water. Once you put a little ink in the water, the whole water... To clean it, you could try and clean it, but it's harder than hell to clean it. But it's real easy to pollute it. And I think to myself, where were we when Bernie Sanders announced he was running for president? We were up here. We were way up here. We felt like anything was possible. We misunderstood the mission of Bernie Sanders. We misunderstood our purpose in this mission. We thought that he was going to ride in on a white horse and change everything in one fell swoop. But what he did was he rode in, took a rope, hooked it on the curtain of the lies that we've been living, and rode off on that horse, pulling that curtain away, and we got to see all the filth. It was like the Matrix. All of a sudden, our eyes were opened to the fact that now we know Democratic Party is a private corporation, that they set the bylaws, and that they don't even have to have a primary if they don't want to. They could just select somebody to be their nominee. Now we know the role of the superdelegates is stacked. Now that we know the way that they purge voters from the rolls, now that we know the way that they will use the master of elections, et cetera, to close polling places, to make it more, to game the system, to keep people away and stuff, to do different things. Now that we know, that we've seen these things, we can literally sit there and say, oh, it's hopeless. Why even do this? It's just a sham. Or we can say, Thank God we finally see it. Now we can fix it. Roll up our sleeves and go, flex mode. Let's do this. Now, I have decided that I didn't want to be depressed anymore. I didn't want to feel sad anymore. When I say sad is a normal emotion, but I didn't want to feel hopeless anymore. I got tired of the Debbie the Sane progressive constant doom and gloom. I got tired of all the QAnon doom and gloom. I got tired of all the other nonsense that you see. And I said, what can I change? What can I change in my world? So I started putting my focus on different things, and I want to tell you a few things, and then I'm going to get into the meat of the subject. My son, he's 3+ years old, drank from a cup with a straw today for the first time. Picked up the cup. I got it on videotape. He was so excited. My son has autism. He has sensory processing problems, okay? And there he was. He drank from a straw. Now, for regular kids that are normies, that's not a big deal. You expect that. You expected that years before. But for a kid who can't put regular food in his mouth, who can't feed himself at 3+, who can't even eat puffs, drinking from a straw, you'd have thought we won the Super Bowl today. You'd have thought we won the Mega Millions. The whole house was cheering. It was incredible. But it kept making me think, we got to keep finding victories, because this is a game of inches sometimes. Sometimes just holding court and being able to stay in neutral is a win. Sometimes not moving 15 steps backwards, but only 2 steps backwards is a win. And when Bernie Sanders ran for office, we got to see what we could do. We got to see what we look like as a progressive nation. We got to see what I don't care about Bernie. I mean, I do, but forget him for a minute. We got to see what we look like together with hope. Remember what that hope felt like. It wasn't about Bernie. It was about us. It was about us. It was a beautiful thing, and it can be there for us. And so what I want to do is I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why we found hope in Bernie and why it electrified the nation, why we were electrified. You remember when the bird flew in and landed on the podium? There's no amount of conspiracy theories that does that. It doesn't happen. Okay? I mean, I guess in some bizarro world, they could have trained the bird to land, and I don't know. But that takes so much faith, the weird kind of faith. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going with there was something there, and it was for us, not for Bernie, for us. All this stuff was never about Bernie. It never was. It was about us. The hope was always hashtag not me, us. This is a big deal, folks. I don't want to let that go. And it's not Bernie I'm talking about. So for all the doomsday sellers, for all the people that want me to be miserable and want you to be miserable and want you to sit there and drain your veins the long way because Bernie didn't do what you thought he'd do for you. Remember, you're not powerless. We didn't have to break up. We didn't have to let people run off to Q and start believing in some bizarre, unnamed Messiah. We didn't have to do all these different things. We could have stayed the course and fought for a new deal. We could have stayed and built on that with or without Bernie. It didn't matter. Do you understand? We could have done that, and we still can. We still can. It never was about voting for one person. I hope we understand this. But the doomsday sellers want it to be all about him. They want it to be all about the system. And I can tell you right now, it's not the system that's the problem. Once you start living in hope, instead of focusing on the end of times and doomsday, I mean, just pathetic, miserable existence of just pure, unadulterated bleakness, you can clearly see, that for the first time in forever, forget the hope and change of Obama. Obama never was selling the real deal. He wasn't selling it then. He never sold it during his campaign. He never sold it as president. He was a new Democrat. He was a proud corporatist. He was a proud neoliberal, and he wore it boldly. He didn't care. He wasn't even trying to pull punches. He just had better bedside manners than the guy in there right now. Bernie sold us hope. He didn't just sell us hope. He continued a 40-year trajectory of planting these seeds. And so for the first time in my lifetime, and I'm 50 almost, there's a real legitimate pathway to hope. And I'm going to tell you right now, that entire primary, there wasn't a single vote cast until you started, going to these different actual polling places. But I'm talking about the movement. That was 100% a movement. It wasn't electoral politics. It was so much more than that. It was beautiful. Jill couldn't tap into it. She had every opportunity to tap into it and didn't. She didn't snag it. It didn't work. It didn't fly because what she was selling wasn't quite the same thing as what Bernie was selling. No matter how much we want it to be different, no matter how much, it just wasn't there. And why is that? Because it was never about the person. They tried to change it into voting for a person. And then all of a sudden it became about the Green Party. It became about these things. It was no longer about us. It was about building the Green Party. It was about, hey, Bernie, you got to do this. It was no longer about us anymore. It became something else. And then it became nasty. And then it became demoralizing. And then when the Green Party didn't even crack the 1% threshold, and we knew all the voting problems, then it just got more and more dismal. The hope for this man, for this guy right here, started before I even knew Bernie Sanders was running for office. The hope for me, you're not going to believe it. I'm serious. You will not believe what the hope for me was. I'm going to show you it. It's going to shock you. I admit it. But the hope for me was this right here. Okay. The hope for me was this. And I'm going to tell you something. When Bernie Sanders brought Stephanie Kelton in to the Senate, the Budget Committee, and then when he brought her into his campaign, that's when I had hope. Because I knew the only hope that any of us had was to dispel Milton Friedman's lie of scarcity, that we were broke, that if we spent money, we'd have hyperinflation, and that we couldn't do any of the things that our hope made us dream about. These grand dreams, we couldn't have them. We could not even begin to dream a better dream because we were broke as a nation. And when you're broke as a nation, you'll take your porridge, you'll eat your peas, and you'll shut up and speak when spoken to. There's nothing revolutionary about being broke. We all understand that feeling of being broke. It's a horrible place to be. And that's what this nation had been selling. that we're broke, that we can't afford nice things, that we've got to cut spending. We got to reinvent government to reduce spending. They even kept peddling the lie that the federal government needed to borrow money from private banks, that somehow or another the government that created the US dollar out of thin air, somehow or another the US government was broke, dead broke, and would never be able to afford these things because it had to borrow money from China. And they put this doom and gloom narrative on us. And everywhere I go, even now, that doom and gloom narrative reigns supreme. The ink in the water is blue, man. It's just, actually, it's black. And so people are back to thinking somehow or another electing people, these people, is going to somehow or another change the world. I'm here to tell you, vote. I'm not one of those people who tells you not to vote. I believe you have every reason and right to vote. And you know what? Less evil is less evil. I'm not telling you who to vote for, and I'm not telling you to Dem enter or Dem exit or Green enter or Green exit. I'm just telling you, when you have to sit there and walk into a booth, somebody's going to win that seat. Somebody will win that seat. Somebody will be there making decisions that will control your life, my life, all of our lives. It doesn't matter whether you think the system's rigged or whether or not there's a good candidate up there. At the end of the day, you will be ruled and you will have laws passed by the individuals that are on that ticket, and you have a choice of who to vote for. I'm not telling you who to vote for at all. You're not going to hear that from me. That's not my MO. Because I put about this much into this. I put the electoral politics right over here. Why is that? Because honestly, the people that we're electing right now today, with very few exceptions, long shot like Rodolfo Cortez is running against a longtime establishment hack out in California. Tim Canova in Florida, who's running against the worst hack of them all, and Debbie What's-Her-Name Schultz. You know, we've got Guy Mamoun, who's running here in Maryland. But, you know, I see people championing Beto, right? Beto's got those good looks, the Kennedy-esque looks, blah, blah, blah. And maybe somebody's in his ear talking economics. I don't know. I don't put much stock in any of these people. But I do put stock in we the people. And so when this election passes on the 7th and we all go out and vote or do our thing, the minute that vote is cast, the minute it's over, it's right back to it. It's back to it. I'm not going to stay on it. I'm right back to teaching modern monetary theory to every person that will listen to me. Why is that? Today I went and picked up lunch for the family. And when I walked in there was a gentleman who owned this, I don't know, it was like, I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. I probably do remember it, but something or other. Davy Bones Locker was what it was called. That's it, Davy Bones Locker. And it's in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. And I walked in there, and they were nice as could be, but man, oh man, you couldn't have gotten more Trump oriented than, I mean, they practically oozed Trump. And I walked in there with my Bernie hoodie, and he said, "That's funny." I said, looked at my Bernie hoodie, and I said, "Well, I kind of supported the guy." He goes, "No." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you, a communist?" I said, "No." I said, "I just know modern monetary theory." He goes, "Huh?" I'm hoping he's watching tonight. But I sat there and engaged him for a little bit about MMT. And I said to him, I said, you know, the first progressive was Teddy Roosevelt. These guys were Republicans. Don't let the party name fool you, man. There's an opportunity here for us all to move forward. He was like, I want to take a look at this. Now, mind you, he sat there and told me he just started his own nonprofit also. He started a nonprofit to help homeless veterans. I think we all can get behind something like that, right? Even though he's a Trumper, My interest doesn't lie in electoral politics. I'm a movement builder. I want people to know the truth and activate based on that. I want you to be an antagonist to any elected official, whether it's your favorite party or not. I want you out there talking to every single person because it's that important. Because hope is what we're fighting for, right? And when I talked to him, I felt like he probably didn't have much respect for Bernie. He probably didn't have much respect for me and probably thought that it was communist, this, that, and the other, whatever. That's fine. It's fine. But I made a connection with the guy. We hit it off. We talked for a little bit. Then I left and I drove home. And I thought, I have to check back in with him sometime. I wrote down Real Progressives and I wrote down Modern Monetary Theory. And, we talked a little bit of football, Steelers fan kind of stuff. But I had an opportunity there to talk about hope, about real hope. I didn't talk parties. I didn't talk candidates. Talked about hope. It's kind of a universal language. It's the stuff the 99% needs. I talk to different people and I say, what would you do if you found out the nation wasn't broke? What would you do with that? You don't have to tell me, go dream, go home and dream. Think about it for a little while. What would you do if you found out the nation could afford to do just about anything you wanted, anything you could dream up? Find a cure for cancer? Yep, sure could. Find a way to do space vacations? I'm sure they'll do that soon enough. Whatever. I'm just saying, whatever you can dream, we can do. We've been led to believe we can't do things, so it dims our brains, it dulls our imagination, it kills our hope. So I went to AA back on June 13th, 1993. I had just hit a blinking arrow board 100 yards down a bridge, and my little Aries K car was bent like an L. And it was on the Route 50 bridge. No, excuse me. Yeah, Route 50 bridge coming out of Ocean City, Maryland, towards Salisbury. Cop comes up. Boo! I'm out there trying to change my tire. My car is bent like an L. I laugh, not because it's good to be drunk or drive or wreck your car or anything like that, but because it was the thing that started off my journey. I ended up going to an AA meeting. I walk in the door. Somebody comes up to me I'd never met before and said, "You know something? You never have to drink again, Steve." And I was like, "What? What?" I didn't know how to process that because I drank every day. But it was a first step toward hope. Just guessing there's an alternative. Just guessing that there's an alternative. And I thought to myself, maybe this ain't going to be so bad. I thought it'd be weirder than this. Maybe it ain't going to be so bad. Then at the end, we all hold hands. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. And in that moment, I had hope. And I stayed sober for about 8 years. Screwed it up. I got back. I got better. I've been just past a big milestone here recently. September 15th. I think I'm at 12 years now. So there's hope. I just passed a certification exam the other day. There's hope. I'm talking to you. There's hope. And what I'm hoping is that as an organization, Real Progressives can continue to build layers, foundations, not fast, not rushing over here, jumping past where we need to be, but building a platform that allows for people to dream a better dream and have a lot of hope. Build a better dream and have a lot of hope. And take that hope into their churches. Sit down and have meaningful conversations with people. Have meaningful conversations at soccer practice. Have meaningful conversations at the water cooler at work or at lunch. It takes every one of us to do this, but the fact is, hope is a wonderful thing. Now, doom sells. There's no question doom sells. But how many of us really want the world to incinerate on us? The only chance we have to fix the earth is to believe we have a chance to fix the earth. That's hope. Yes, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Our planet is becoming most inhospitable to mankind because we've screwed it up so badly. People are really, really dying right now because they don't have health care. Not good health care. A lot of poverty out there, unnecessary poverty out there. It's a horrible thing. You can live in the doom. You can live in the gloom. Or you can sell the solution, which is, hey, this is all political choice. You know, earlier today I was debating a guy in Tulsi Gabbard 2020 or something like that. He started throwing the normal barbs at me. Some days I just don't have the patience for it. Some days I just want to strike a flex and go, just scorched earth and just burn them all down because I get so tired of people saying ridiculously dumb and defeatist things. But for whatever reason, I had a good moment. I mean, I had moments where I didn't do well because I felt that rage simmering. Because you're trying to sell me negative bullshit again. You're trying to sell me more of that bullshit. But then I realized people have really been conditioned to not have any faith, not have any hope, to not believe, to believe the bullshit, even though they say they're fighting against the bullshit. But how can you fight against the bullshit if you believe it? What are you doing to fight back if that's what you believe? You can't win. It's an oxymoron. You got to have hope. So I sat there and I took the time and I said, you know something? I said, I don't have a lot of time today to go through this, but here are some important links. Here's an interview I did with Dr. Kelton and Dr. Mitchell. Take a listen. If you're interested, you know how to get in touch with me. I'm the founder of Real Progressives. This is what we do. This guy was fighting with me, and now all of a sudden he's liking it. Now, I have no idea if he'll ever come back and talk to me ever. It doesn't matter, but there were people there that did. And that's sometimes enough, planting seeds. We got to plant seeds of hope. And that's what MMT does. It provides us a way through all the reasons why nothing will work. Every reason why they say it won't work, we have an answer for that. Every single one, we have an answer for it. MMT is scholarly, deep, many, many layers deep. So much rigor has been put into it. It has been beaten. Folks, these academics have been torn apart by orthodox economists now for over 30 years. And they just keep growing and growing and growing because they're right. And the orthodoxy is petrified. And guess what? When MMT wins, there's hope for all. Because they're not selling bullshit. They're selling hope. Real hope. Founded in provable operational reality of a free-floating fiat currency on one hand. And then theoretical framework for what you can do with this stuff we know for a fact over here. It's not some I gotta hate this. Is there anything worse? I'll just take a moment, sidetrack for a sec. Is there anything worse than people that don't understand what the word theory is and say it's just a theory? Do you know what layers of scrutiny it takes to rise to the level of a theory? It means it has been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, save for any new information that may come along. There is enough congruent facts and proof to say, yes, this is the way it is. But you know what? We may learn something new someday, so it could change. But based on everything we know today, this is true. That's what a theory. Oh, you know, it doesn't mean it's true. I got this. Anyway, I digress. But that's what we're up against. That doomsday evil. It's not the people that are evil. It's the lack of hope that's evil. It's the evil one, if you will, if you're a religious person. And if you're just a regular secular person, it's the poison of negativity. It's the poison of groupthink. It's the poison of unsubstantiated conspiracy bullshit that seeps into the consciousness and robs us of any possibility for better. Now, MMT, modern monetary theory, is hope, because what it says is a government or a currency issuing nation can never go broke on debt denominated in its own currency. And every single treasury bond we sell is denominated in our currency because we're not in debt at all. We sell these things because people want to put their existing dollars into savings accounts. That's the big one, right? The debt. Oh my God, we're going to die. The debt. Well, all they're doing is taking their existing dollars they got in trade from selling goods and services into the U.S. They have this U.S. dollars. They don't take them back to China to spend U.S. dollars. They're like, well, what do we do with this? I guess we can dump them. Who cares? Or we can go ahead and buy bonds and earn a modest interest on the money we earned here. Sounds really scary, doesn't it? But MMT allows us to understand this. Now, all of a sudden, you're not panicking about the national debt anymore, are you? You say reduce the deficit. We've talked about this before. I think I even still have the paper from the other day. You know, the deficit, right? Here it was, the ledger. One side of the deficit is the other side's surplus, right? So if the public sector is in deficit, then the private sector is in surplus. That's us. Nothing to panic over. But if we're in deficit, that's when we have to borrow money from private banksters. That's a pretty bad deal, isn't it? This is hope. We understand it now. Hey, we understand the system. It's not that it's rigged. It's that we were ignorant and we didn't know how to use it. And we allowed doomsday sellers, the Ron Pauls of the world that didn't know economics, to mislead us. The Alex Joneses of the world to mislead us with slick documentaries. The Zeitgeist movement that lied to us about all the debt, years of debt, blah, 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 debt. They just didn't know any better. Ignorance. But sure enough, they made a slick documentary and got a whole following from it. That's not hope. That's a lie. You can't find hope in a lie. And if you find hope in a lie, it's going to be going nowhere because it's a lie. So what do we want, right? What was it inspired you to be a part of this movement? I'm telling you, let me rattle off a few things for you to think about when we part ways here tonight. You're thinking about green energy. You're thinking about getting away from fossil fuels. You think about ending wars for oil by going on to renewables and eliminating that whole thing from the equation. You're thinking about healthcare for your children, for yourself, for future generations. You're thinking about getting rid of that noose of student debt. You're thinking about free college so that people that want an education can get one. And it doesn't matter how rich their mom and dad are. They can go and they can get it. You're thinking about making sure that unemployment is eradicated forever with a federal job guarantee. You're hoping that not only does cost of living increases go up, but Social Security is expanded. Maybe even the age of retirement is dropped because we expand Social Security. Maybe you're hoping that you won't have to pick and choose between taking care of a sick relative or a child and your job through paid family and medical leave. Maybe you're thinking about even more than that and you just, it's impossible. MMT opens the mind and frees us from the limitations of the lies that we've been told. No more lump of coal in the stocking to keep us good kids come Christmas. We know it's a lie. And that's hope, because you can see through it now. Now you can make a legit decision because you're no longer snowed by the lie. Hope means that we can save lives. We can end homelessness. We can end starvation. We can end the drug war. We can stop making people who are felons lose the right to vote and restore them. We can restore people. We could provide reparations for all the years of damage that we've done to vulnerable communities. We can solve very, very complex diseases and very complex scientific problems and never run out of money to do it. Once we understand MMT, and MMT could better be described as simply macroeconomics and federal financing, sovereign economics. It shatters the myth about what the Federal Reserve is. All the myths and legends and all the crap. Really, Federal Reserve could be boiled down to a simple spreadsheet, one person sitting there at a desk. It's that boring, what they really do. But we've allowed doomsday sellers and people that don't understand to mislead us and take away our hope. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Hope is what will take us where we want to be. We're not going to get anywhere without hope. And so tonight's discussion, I hope, left you with hope. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great night, everyone.